Hey everyone. Today I want to talk about the critical thinking and what is preventing us from really achieving what we're supposed to, quality of thinking that we're supposed to have when we receive so much information that it's going on right now on all social media and all the news um, channels that exist. So I wanna just bring you up to a quick point here, and I'm going to also share some of the information I have on my screen. But I want to start with something that's important for you to kind of contemplate. And we are in need to consume this information that's coming out there, and the way it is presenting to us, it's in a way preventing us to utilize the parts of the brain that we need in order to really think through and be aware of what's going on and have a way for us to really let all the information sink in and form the opinion that we're supposed to form without being pushed under stress or under fear. So let me just share quickly what I have here, because I think this is going to make more sense for you as you have a visual of this, okay? So what I'm gonna share with you is this part first. So we're gonna look at the parts of the brain that we have, okay? We have 6 parts of our brain, and I want to make sure that you consider looking at what each of those are going to do for you, and understand that when we are under a certain stress or certain when we receive the information in a way when we're actually shutting down some of the parts of our brain. So I'm going to take a few minutes to just let you see this, okay? We have the prefrontal cortex, we have neocortex, we have limbic, primitive brain, heart brain, and gut brain, and those are the 2 of them that are much more work has been produced around it, and it's very important to realize that those are also part of our brain. So we're looking at what primitive brain does for us, okay, and how it is wired to protect us, and it decides how we react to a threat. And at the same time, what my biggest problem, the reason I wanted to make this video was because you can't, when we're feel that we're under threat, the primitive part of the brain it kind of takes over, and our thinking it's not going to be as clear, because the primary thing that we're going to do is to make sure that we protect ourselves from harm. So we'll look at the heart brain, how it does, and how we also have this syncing. It's a lot of work done around how are we synchronizing with each other, how we're feeling that if you're lying or not, how we're feeling if somebody's telling us the truth or not, and that's coming from the brain part, from the heart part, the brain. And then we look at the limbic system, right, and how our emotions, how our the way that we have, and all the pattern that happened, everything that happened to us is kind of lays out into that limbic brain. And storing all that history is going to come out, and all that information is going to be acting as a filters, if you will, to what the new information is. We look at the neocortex also, and how we store the information, basic thinking, and cognitive skills, everything that we do every day. And prefrontal cortex, which is the most important one that I would like for you to focus on this discussion, because this is hardwired for our high level coordination of the whole brain, and this is the one that gets shut down when we are we're using our primitive brain, and we are getting this piece not functioning correct. And unfortunately, this is where all the critical thinking and all the judgments and the difficult situations lies into. This is the part that it's so critical for us to even create envisioning possibilities for the future. And if that is shut down in that moment, then we're not going to be able to find a way, the best way to get out of a situation. And not to take the list, the last but not the least one is the most new work that has been put together for the gut brain, which is so important. The gut brain is totally revolutionizing what's going on right now, because it shows us that 90% of the body's serotonin is in the place where we just said that we're probably not even thinking about it. That's why what we eat and what we are eating and how we take care of our gut, it's become so important. And it's also playing a role in our learning and memory and cognition. So as you see, there's so many things that are going to contribute to what we're calling what's into the entire thinking process. So I wanted you to, after you look at all this, and after you also consider that if that is the situation that we're going through, and we are so complex, right? We have all those pieces that we need to put together. I want you to think about how are we actually consuming the information that has been presented to us. And if there is a way in which when we're getting presented the information, and I've seen this even in marketing right now and for many years, right, utilized, and even in all the places where you think that your primary interactions during your lifetime are going to, if you go and reflect to them, right, you're going to see that if you are not going to take in consideration the way you're using your words and your impact that you're making on the other person, so your intention and the impact may not be synchronized. We all have an intention, but we're forgetting about looking at the impact. Or some people very well know what the impact is going to be, so that's why they're putting information in that way to you, because they want you to be shut down the executive functions of your brain, and they want you to not be able to see clear what the picture is or find a solution to that problem. So utilizing those few things, I hope is going to make you aware of what can you do right now to really consume the information that's coming up to you in such a way in which you take a little bit of your, let's say you don't like someone and you just hear information from what they do. So if you can take that filter out and just look at behind what they want to communicate or for their intention, see how that intention actually plays out. Because we can just come into a conversation with those preconceived kind of ideas about someone. If we do that, we already prime ourselves for not trusting that person. And in the same time, look at how people who may be holding a very high status in the society, they actually may not have the best intention for us, and they're actually kind of presenting us a solution to be all, and we have to stay and think about, hold on, that may not be the right thing to do for us. So I wanted to talk to you about this today, because until all day long I was thinking about it, and I put myself a note on the Facebook, and I'm going to come back and give you some of my thoughts on this, because I think as is normal for us to kind of go on a ladder of conclusion, kind of come up to based on our reactions and our bioreactions and our feelings, we're kind of growing and making up our own story about something. We interpret it, we look at the meaning, we look at the assumptions. At the same time, and the thoughts and beliefs are getting to a certain conclusion. But although this is very normal and it's happening in everybody's head, we all kind of wired to the same, we're going to get to the best conclusions if we're actually not going to be under the stress and under the fear that kind of it's imposed to us. So if you can just take that fear away, if you can just think about it as not letting your brain be hijacked, amygdala be hijacked, and just let this chemical reaction going into your brain actually is like you're drinking from 2 cups, right? You're drinking from either a green and cup that has a drink that the color of it is green, and it's that what prefrontal cortex would like to have is a trust. It's that what oxytocin actually creates for us, and we start thinking and create and trust the other person, and then we're open to create something along with it. Or we're doing this with distrust. When we're doing with a distrust, then we have this amygdala, it's hijacked, and then our level of cortisol and adrenaline is going up, and at that point we're actually cutting off the connection, and the prefrontal cortex is getting shut down, and the primitive brain is coming out, and at that point that we're going to fight, and we're going to not be the right version or best version of ourselves. Absolutely. It's critical. It's critical if we can keep the CEO of the brain, right, the prefrontal cortex, as much as possible functioning during the day, because that is responsible for the critical thinking and the abstract thought, and as well as other functions like focusing, like attention, like organizing your thoughts, controlling impulses, and everything. Forming strategies for future actions is going to happen in that with the help of this part of the brain. So I want you to be aware of that. So my next point that I wanted to make is this. I used to be software engineer for many years. And about 20 years ago, I started working in software development. I've done web development for the most part, but I know what it takes to write a lot of code, right? The lines of code to create that software. And I also learned from this industry, the software industry, from companies like Microsoft and Apple, or larger corporations who created code, that it's never good to buy the first version or install the first version of anything. And why it's not good is because that actually it's not, they put it out with knowing that there is so much that they don't know about it, and that there are actually going to be bugs inside. And that it's okay, by the time people are going to discover the bugs, we, the company, we're going to have time to come along and push out the next version of it. So I want you to be aware that this kind of approach to things exists from those the software companies, from IT company, if you will. And it is something good and something bad to it. When you take this model and you apply it to something as a software that you may be using, and your phone is not going to function very well, and you might be annoyed by it, and you say, I'm not going to buy this software anymore, I'm not going to buy this phone from somebody, it's one thing. But when you were playing and you were taking the same approach and you put it into a different development life cycle of a different thing, like I don't know, a drugstore or a vaccine or anything like this, right? Something that you want to create a solution. I have a problem with that. I have a problem because now we can't take that risk. I mean, when I was a software engineer, I kind of did everything that takes in the life cycle. And at one point I was in the testing team, and nothing could pass by me because I could find those bugs, and the software will never come out if it was me in the gatekeeper for that. So what they had to do is like, well, we got to find something else to do, because like, obviously with your attention and the details and the way you're looking at things, we're never going to be able to pass this. So I understand that point, that there had to be that 80-20 rule, which yes, I can live with that, but still when it comes to take this approach and coming back again to the testing and to what's going on right now and the solutions that are coming up and how cool and quick they be, I want you to be aware of that. I want you to look at it and say, is it really normal, or how much of research and development and attention and detailed documentation of the results we need to put into something when we're playing with actual humans here, and with people that can be affected, and the fact that our DNA is so unique, and when you say that something may work in an environment, may not work for so many people, because there's so many possibilities here. And if you think about that, also I want you to be aware that we may be at risk. And although I love so much the interdisciplinary approach, taking something that works in one industry and putting another one, and I enjoy doing that with certain things, with knowledge, transferring the knowledge from one place to another, to me, there is a clear kind of line that if we cross over and if we put the same approaches, it could be devastating in a way, because there's so much that is so much more than we don't know, that the things that we know. And I think you agree with me, in any industry, in any research and development, there is so much more. And there is also, to add to this, something that's even, to make it even more complex or even more strange or dangerous, whatever you want to put the word there, I'll let you fill in the blank, will be when you add to the whole mix the fact that you think that you can have the power to make a decision like that, and you're not inviting to the table the right people that will create that balance, and those people to be open to influence each other, to show their point of view, and really make what's better for everybody else. Yeah, we're living in a society when it's very I-centric, unfortunately, and it's such a dangerous kind of a route to take if we're just thinking what will make sense to me, and it's that it's not healthy to think that way. The greatest things have happened, and it will happen forever if we're thinking about what is great for the other people that I'm serving, or what is great for, that's the real leadership here. So I hope what I told you, and it's not going to confuse you even more. I hope you're going to look at how can we apply critical thinking in times like that, and how can we clean our brain from all the poison that exists, and let our brain really function right. And if you want to know what is the best way of functioning, remember or watch a kid that keeps asking you questions. Why is that? Why is that? Why is that? Those are the key indicators, performance indicators of a great thinking, because that child, when he's asking you that, they're not polluted with things. So they are the ones that, in the 2-3 years old, they start asking a lot of questions, and that's how we should be. Even at this age, we should ask ourselves, why is this? What things are going on, and put them all in a landscape, and trying to understand the entire game plan here for as much as we can, because obviously there is a visible and there is an invisible story. And to pull a visible story, to make it visible, it takes a lot of discipline on our side. It takes journaling, maybe it takes us staying and thinking through and really, really analyzing patterns of our thinking, and analyzing what is going on that actually I see today, what I observed, am I aware of what's going on, first of all. So many people experience today that we've been caught into, let's do that just because everybody else does it, and they're not even question anything, and that's super dangerous in a way. But I hope this hasn't confused you more. I hope it kind of challenges you to see how can you look really critically and apply critical thinking to what's going on out there. And as a word of caution would be keeping yourself in that cool state. Do not let the fear, if you feel like you are in a fear state, or if you feel like you're disgusted by something, if you feel like you're so much affected by what you see out there, take the time to let that sink in and think through it afterwards. Think after you get to that emotion, because otherwise you will not do you won't be able to find the truth through all of this. You'll be in a way, you got to slow down in a way to catch what's going on. And I'm not saying that I know what it is, but I know that if I want to figure it out, I need to protect my brain, and I need to take all those 6 parts of my brain and know that they exist and have them work with me as I needed to check my gut for certain things, check my heart for what I feel, that the sinking or not sinking, and then going forward with how can I keep my executive function intact as much as I can from what I hear, because the thoughts that are internal thoughts, they create the words for us. And this is a good news and a bad news, right? At the same time, the words create the words that we kind of get to see. So if we are able to look at what the words are out there, that's why we get triggered, right? Because of the words, because of what people said to us, we get triggered by certain things. So I think it's important for you to look at what words are the ones that are triggering you, and put them on a paper and study them and see why is that. And then it could be a very, very important fundamental value that you have, that you want to stay in integrity with. It's very important to you. And if the more you know about that, the more you'll be able to form your next visions and the next, in a way, protecting what you know that you stand for. And I think that it's kind of unfortunate that we're not practicing this in schools, and we're not thinking through it in these exercises. Now we're in the middle of a crisis, when we have to remind ourselves that when conversations trigger this primitive brain, we lose executive function. And when that happens, we only focus on our intention. When we only focus on our intention, we can often have a negative impact on others and activate that lower part of the brain, okay, with the amygdala hijack takes place. So when all this goes well in a conversation, we have an intention to communicate and reconnect, and it's a different positive, different feeling that's going on in your body, and you know that's it's the truth, because the executive function and what's going on in that part, it's the levels of we gain high levels of wisdom. That's where we know we get a sign that it's everything feels, and I know this is the brilliant ideas, right? We get wisdom, we get insights, we get strategy, we get empathy and compassion, we get foresight, integrity, and trust. And this is so important to protect that part of us. And we all are capable of it. We all have it. We're part of our mechanics. But if we don't know how to protect it, or what it's hijacking it, or what's making it less effective, then we will act on a much lower, I would say, standard that we can. And I think that's super unfortunate in a way. So the more we understand how our body works, I think it's the better it is for us to even understand what's going on around us and make the right decision and stand with the right part of if we have to make somehow to choose. We have to make a choice, right? Because obviously we are faced with choices every second, but how we choose what's right versus what's not right, it's going to be very, very important. Okay, so I think that's all I had. Another caution, I might just look at the be careful how people are asking the leading questions, right? Because those are loaded with the answer in it. You don't want to play that game. You want to recognize what the leading question is and kind of stay away from it in a way, because you do want to not to have anybody leading you through something. You just want to think factually, and you are going to look at the facts. You want to look at it like you have cameras. You're going to take your, in a way, put your camera and zoom into the problem and zooming out and sometimes have a bigger camera, look at the problem from a different direction, not only from one side. Because even in the software engineer side, or even when people are getting very vertically solid in their knowledge, expertise, they tend to solve that problem only from that position. I've seen this even in software engineering, right? That if you give the problem to a Java developer, that guy will come exactly with solving that problem through what he knew, the kind of code that he knew to solve. And he could solve that. But my question all the time was, is that the most effective way? Do we have any other thing in place that we can use to actually make that makes more sense? And I think we're missing that kind of integration, or that kind of a high-level picture that knows enough about the possibilities but doesn't go into any of the details to become affected by thinking only through that channel, and be addicted to be right only from that point of view. So if we can keep ourselves at a high level of understanding and then dig deeper into what makes more sense, and also look at what other people are saying about it, and even get into a conversation with them to figure out what is actually here that I need to hear and I need to follow through. Okay, I am getting excited about this, but I'm gonna stop right here. If you have any questions, like always, please contact me, ask me anything that may help you. And yeah, stay safe, but also keep your protect your asset. And one of the best assets you have is not necessarily your financials, or it's your house, and your family. To protect your assets, it's your brain. And I want you to learn how to protect that from anything that you've been exposed to, or anything that your eyes can see and can be image processed in your brain. So yeah, protect yourself from all those possibilities that may not take you to the right outcome after all. Thank you. We'll keep in touch.